Well, thanks for taking the time to sit down. Before we jumped in, you were like, "Why me?" And I will tell you. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
And it's I'd say one of the reasons is I know that you're a big old nerd. I can tell from your enthusiasm for board games. I believe I've sent you some recommendations in the past. So I would love to not only talk about what nerdy shit you're into, but we can talk about voiceover and stuff as well. I mean, if you'd like. You were recently in Persona 5 Strikers, which I was also like, dude, that's great, because like I think you're great. I think you're very talented.
No, you're great.
Oh no, you're great.
You're
and when I saw you in the cast, I was like, hell yeah, like that is like a great choice.
Thanks, yeah.
With the character Zenkichi, right?
Yeah, Zenkichi Hasayama.
Zenkichi, yeah. I actually haven't played it yet, but for those of you who do play the game, who are listening, that is Tom's character. But before we get into any of that, I would just like to know, during these sort of troubled times, what have you been doing in your spare time? If you have spare time. I know, obviously, I'm sure work takes up a lot of time, but and family, I'm sure. But if you have time to yourself, what is keeping you entertained these days?
Well, the hard part has been kind of finding social interactions, but I was kind of saved that before all of this went down, because my friends that I've had for, a long time, since, university and things like that, we've been separated just by geography for the longest time. And so we've been hanging out and playing games together, like AOL Instant Messenger and ICQ and then Skype and TeamSpeak. Like, we've done all of them. And now we migrated to Discord. So sometimes, once everybody gets set up and, the kids are off to bed or on their way, like, I just log on to Discord and we'll hang out, and somebody will play a game and we'll watch them. Lately, we've been playing Valheim together.
I've heard good things. That's like a sandboxy one, like Minecraft-y?
Yes.
Right?
Minecraft via the Viking Afterlife. And then the way they put it is, we felt it was time to bring PlayStation 1 graphics back. And and they did. Like, it's low poly, but they did some really wonderful work with some of the textures and then the lighting and whatnot. So it has a very distinctive look and feel to it.
Oh, interesting.
Great,
I actually did not know that about this.
Yeah, and it's an early access, but we're, we one of us bought in because we heard the buzz, and then all of us bought in, and it's been interesting. Now, they play more than I do, so half the time I come in and everybody makes fun of my like little ramshackle house. But I will also come in and say, "What do you guys need?" And we'll work together. As a friend of mine says, each Viking according to their Viking. As we have this kind of like nice commune going on as we traverse and put things together. So everybody's got beds and extra beds in every home. They have a network of teleporters set up so we can get where. It's unbelievable. The
sounds like a better life than COVID.
Oh, right.
Sounds like you're living your best life through another game.
Oh yeah. So there's that. But I play games with the kids. We do lots of board games. It's at the beginning we were more like, let's do more board games. Let's do this. Let's play these things together, and we did all of that and bought like multiple copies of Animal Crossing for me, and especially my daughter. My son played a little bit. We did Ultimate Chicken Horse online with friends, things like that. Just anything to keep going. But then we also we're a music family, so we all play music, piano, and I dabble in guitar and whatnot. So a lot of things, and work is the way I look at it. Like, work is work.
Sure.
So, you're probably more busy in like the standard stuff, that we're out here for. But my day job is my day job basically is audiobooks. So when I'm not doing something for Persona or a commercial something or whatever it is, I am in this booth that I'm in right now reading things out loud for hours on end. And then, of course, just juggling being at home with the family, too, you know.
Sure.
I was in a very advantageous spot because I already worked from home. My wife was able to transition to working from home as well. And then we were able to just go, well, what do you kids need? Okay, here's a Chromebook, and here's a Chromebook for you too. And what else do you need? And we set up desks for everybody, and everybody got set with what they needed. So, you know, and we've had our own like kind of mental health stuff as a result of all of this, but we've weathered it okay. So we've been fortunate in that regard. Difficult though it may be, but we kind of, you know, bought in to a couple different things and just tried to keep going. So
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. What about you?
Similar to you were mentioning your friend group that's sort of been separated like by location. Like one of my oldest friend groups from like high school. We've known each other 15 some years now, and it's the exact same progression. Like AIM to Skype. Did you ever go into Uvu?
No, what is Uvu?
No, that was a piece of shit. Don't worry about it.
No, look it up.
It was like Skype was like getting shitty.
Yes.
And then it was like, okay, how can we? I mean, Discord is what we use now, but even that was not until quarantine. That was not a regular thing we were using that often. But now it's like Discord has become like part of my everyday life. I feel like, you know, and it's been kind of interesting because, you know, for me, I was used to interacting with that friend group that way. But now I've been interacting with, you know, sort of what do you call offline friends or local friends. Yeah. But now that I can't see them, it's like, oh, well, now it's become a lot more normalized, which I actually like. I'd always... because I tend to stay up late. Sometimes not by choice. I tend to have trouble sleeping sometimes, and before quarantine, I would always have like, oh, it'd be kind of nice if I could just shoot the shit with somebody. But now with Discord and everybody staying at home, it's become very easy to just, is anybody awake? Yeah, let's just shoot the shit. That sort of thing. So similar boat there. I would love to hear what board games you've been playing with the family. Like what age are your kids?
Okay. My boy just turned 10 about a week ago, so he's 10, and my daughter is 12. She'll be 13. She'll be 13 in September. So,
and did you bring them into board games, or were they interested? I see.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'd always been that way, and we always had video games around, and so then we tried to get people, you know, off screens and offline, and board game stuff was kind of, you know, this is X number of years ago. It was building. It was starting to boom, you know, and we were getting more Euro games and all sorts of stuff that were finally creeping into America, you know. And I remember playing the original Dune board game that they just reprinted.
Right.
And that was the first time I'd ever had anything like that. A buddy of mine who went to the Illinois Math and Science Academy, he invited me out, and we stayed with him, and these super uber nerds like it introduced us to this thing, and I'd never seen anything like it. And I still remember sitting in this too small dorm room with a bunch of dudes trying to figure out this game, and I really didn't, but I was mesmerized at the systems and all that thing that was doing.
Yeah.
So
was that the first sort of the game that kind of got you into the hobby?
You know what? I had friends, and we were all just playing all sorts of stuff, tabletop RPGs, you know, D&D, whatever we get on.
Sure.
And then somebody bought Axis and Allies. So that was a good big one, right? You'd never, because we'd played, you know, we played Candyland, you know, everybody had Monopoly, things like that. And then suddenly brings out this giant board with all this plastic and these dice and we were like, whoa, what is this? And we devoured the rules, and then we just spent a weekend playing the game, you know, to its inevitable, terrible conclusion. Even though we know, oh, well, this is losing, but you know what? Let's fight the fight. Let's do the thing. So there was that kind of stuff. But especially because of video games and, college and everything, a lot of that kind of disappeared. And it didn't pop up again. I don't even know what year it would be, but, until like Catan came into general consciousness. And because I was kind of already steeped in, nerd culture and games and gaming, I tripped into Catan earlier than other people that I know.
Sure.
So I got that one, early, and then bought into all the other stuff. And so with the kids, it was just like, well, this is just an extension of the video games and everything else. And so I taught them kind of like chess early, just to do it. And again, I've got, young kids. It's like, well, I want to interact with them. That's not a screen and some of this other stuff. And so a good board game is important. My daughter devours systems. She loves it. For my son, it's theme and dice. So if I can roll a fistful of dice, he loves it. He loves push his luck, test. Even though he gets really angry when the luck does not go out. It does not go the way he wants it to. So he loves that, but then he loves theme. He loves seeing all the pictures and stuff. So one of the ones we played actually just this weekend was... I'm blanking on it.
What's it about? What's it?
As the Viking worker placement game.
Raiders of the North Sea?
No, I haven't gotten that one yet. The other
Champions of Midgard?
Champions of Midgard, yes. Champions of Midgard. Right?
Yeah.
Good theme. Relatively easy teach. Handfuls of dice.
Yeah.
And the handfuls of dice are you going into battle and, defeating Draugr and things like that. So that one hooks with everybody. Grace loves picking apart the systems, figuring out how to do it. And then my son, he just loves going into it and playing the game and figuring it out and gathering all his guys. So that's a good one. Everybody actually really loves My Little Scythe.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things. Yeah,
It's a brilliant distillation of Scythe. It really is. Also a good teach. And I think that's the hardest thing around here is that when I teach a game, I have to teach to many different levels.
Sure.
My daughter, who's like, what is this? Let's go. My son, who's younger and doesn't necessarily have the attention span for some things, and it takes him a little longer to kind of figure things out. And then my wife, who's usually like burned out by the end of the day, right? So I've got to teach through burnout, age differences and differences in interests. So that's the hard part of finding the right thing. And My Little Scythe just clicked. It just clicked. It just hit everybody's levels. It's, the teach boils down to something simple like, here's what you can do on your turn. That's it. These are the limited choices you need to make on your turn. And if you want to do something, then and it's great because you can just say, well, I want to do this. And then I can reply, all right, here's how you do that. And then the turn's over. And maybe you'll remember that next time that comes around. Whereas my daughter's already plowed through the instruction manual and has figured out something. I'll bring up something. It's in that and a few other games, and I'll point out and say, well, if you do this, this is going to happen. She says, right, but if this happens and I take this, then I'm going to move over here. And I was just like, no, she's doing 3D chess, and here I am thinking I'm talking to a 12-year-old, and I am not.
Your daughter sounds like that's if I had access to the bounty of good games we have now at her age,
right?
That was the mindset I had. Like, it was funny. Like I look back and my sort of jump into the hobby was, oh God, at this point, maybe 10 some years ago, I think. I forget exactly when, but like dipped my toes into like Forbidden Island on an impulse buy at a store. Which is a very, very solid little game. And I mean, now I've just gone. Now, let me ask you before I continue. Do you have a Board Game Geek account?
I don't know.
You don't know? I'm surprised.
It's not like a site.
You seem like you know your shit.
I
like,
do. Well,
the fact that I said Raiders of the North Sea and you were like, not that one. Champions of Midgard is like, this guy's a fucking.
Oh hell yeah! Oh God,
yeah.
Uber. It's always those funny things too. When I it happened again on a recent video game recording that I obviously can't discuss because everything's NDA'd. But the same thing happened with when Persona came around, and I'm talking to the gang over at PCB, and they're like, "So the game's like, no, I played the other ones. Let's go. No, let's go. I know what this is. I know what this is." And it was the same, like one of my earliest video game recordings, like back in Chicago, many moons ago. The guy was like explaining it was for a Vampire the Masquerade. Basically, Hunter the Reckoning. Hunter the Reckoning is the game. And he's explaining about this villain character to me, and he's like, and the guy kind of like meekly says, "So, are you familiar with the World of Darkness, you know?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we all played Vampire the Masquerade when I was in college, and we did this. You know, I got the source book at home." He goes, "Oh, awesome, great, okay." So your character, he's a typical Ventru, and he just starts rattling off stuff in the parlance of the game, and it became this great shorthand. And then the same thing too is with he starts talking about, "So we need this. I need some jumping sounds." It's kind of like I said, "Let's roll," and I just rip out some jumping sounds. It's like, dude, I play the games, and because there weren't a lot of like overlap between, especially like Chicago actors that were part of that world and that could chat in that. So I've always had a really good kind of shorthand when working on video games because I've played the games. And and then when you get into stuff like this, it was great to be able to say, "Yo, I know what this is," And I remember having fun, and Keith's like, "What?" And I was laughing. I said, "Well, I just got to shout Persona today. That's not something that happens every day, Keith, And it was like this really cool day to do that. So it's definitely like something that's kind of been with me for a long time, and it's really played into the work, at least just to give you a shorthand. Everything else still has to be acting, and all of that base work needs to be there. But it's nice to have this other little thing that kind of helps out a little bit, just a little bit of a goose.
I'd say even more than that, because it's like, that shit. You're like, "Oh yeah, I played the first 5 games or whatever." You're like, yeah, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah.
I guess this is sort of a perfect segue into. I'm just curious as to what's your background? Like, how did you sort of fall into voiceover? What was that journey like for you?
Well, so I have a theater degree. I am an actor. I am an actor-ass actor. I have a BFA in theater, magna cum laude. I was about 8th grade. I saw a production. of Into the Woods at back in the Chicago area, and I was just like looking around and just had this moment of, I want to do this for people. I want to have fun too. And as I thought, I think I want to do this. I think I want to be an actor. And my folks are and still have been just wonderful. And I mentioned this to them, 8th grade. And they kind of humored me for a while. Like, sure, sweetie, sure. Because I was interested in all sorts of stuff. As a good student, I got, the right grades, took all the, advanced courses, whatever. But then I wound up auditioning for Into the Woods at a local community theater, the Woodstock Opera House, which was like a big deal out there. And I wound up auditioning. It's like 15, 16. And I wound up playing Jack for their production of Into the Woods. And my mother is a retired language arts teacher, and she always did singing and musicals and theater. And so I knew when I watched her do that stuff growing up. And my dad is a environmental engineer, so I had these two things always in my head. And it was after seeing the show one night and whatnot, he's driving home with me, and he says, "Hey, let's start looking at some colleges." And it was that they were like, yeah, he came in, he competed with, adults and all sorts of other people from the community and was able to do XYZ, and he dedicated himself to this thing as he was doing it through school and kept up his grit. It's like, let's look at it. So, so I got the degree, did the thing, and then I came out and I thought, all right, I'm going to go be an actor. which is a really crap goal, right? You know, especially nowadays, there's so much out there. And I tell students anytime I work with students, it's like, nah, you gotta focus a little bit better than that. But I didn't know any better.
Right.
And voiceover and voice acting weren't as accessible then as it is now. It wasn't even necessarily like you weren't even aware of it as a career, because there was no online stuff. People were just starting to follow voice actors at that point. This is this is the early aughts, so it wasn't what it is now. And so I wound up with I did some dinner theater. They got me an agent. That they're all closed down now, but because I was mic'd for this show and did some like silly voice stuff, they were like, let's try it. And they put me on tape, on cassette tape, to audition for, and it's my first voiceover audition. And it wound up getting me to do a few different voices for Dao Fang, the Fist of Lotus on the original Xbox.
Wow.
And I got to work with John Tobias, half of John Tobias and Ed Boon, you know, creators of Mortal Kombat. So that was like really, really cool. And then later I would get to meet Ed Boon working on Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. And so I should have known.
And so was this like right out of college?
Yeah. A year more out. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it was, so that was like, oh, this is a thing. And then like not much else. Not much else, you know. It was just another thing to do, among other stuff. And I was like trying to make my way into the Chicago theater, do all that stuff, right? I'm a theater actor. Bounced around between some other agencies and whatnot. And finally found, like, when it came to commercial type stuff, for commercial meaning like money acting, like on camera, stuff like that, you know, versus theater. Not that theater can't be lucrative, but, you know, it's not as lucrative unless you hit certain places. So, and in Chicago, you just do everything you can. I know very few actors who are just like, well, I just act. They are all acting in every single thing that comes through town. And these are the people that inspired me. I watched, you know, a bunch of people that I know and love, Norm Boucher, William Dick, and they're in every film that came through town. They're running the gamut of the theaters in the area. Producing their own stuff. And I was never much of a producer kind of go-getter. Like, I look at what you do and what you have done, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I couldn't do that now. And it's genius what you've done. And I absolutely love it.
I appreciate that.
Oh, dude. Oh, and I told my daughter, like, hey, you know who I'm going to talk to today? She's like, what? Someone? Like, yeah. We're gonna hang out.
Does she know who I am?
Yes. Well, you know,
well, tell her I said hi.
I absolutely will. Yeah. You know, and I mentioned like your work stuff, and then of course, you know, your shorter and long form videos on YouTube and everything like that. So yeah, she knows the stuff. She's into anime and drawing and art and things like that. And you're always going to find certain communities.
Sure.
So yeah, so I didn't have that. So I'm just like trying to act. And the whole time, this little percolating, this voiceover thing was happening. I wasn't really doing anything on camera. And a tall, thin white guy in theater? Whoa, you know, I'm not doing anything, right? I'm sneaking into big places like Chicago Shakespeare because I can speak the speak, I can understudy anybody, and I can fight. And so that was one of those things where like, well, this kid's cheap. You know, and I learned a lot there and working at some of the other great places. And it wasn't until like, I went to the final agency that I'm with still in Chicago called Grossman and Jack. I went in there because I was changing up agents, and they were like, oh, so you want to sign up for stuff like that? I said, look, I'm gonna be real honest. The only place that keeps calling me back and saying yes more is voiceover. So I don't know what you want to do. And Vanessa Lanier, she just like throws my demo and whatever aside. She puts some copy in my hand. She's like, let's go. Come on in.
Yeah.
And I read some stuff, and she's like, yeah, I'm happy. And they helped develop me and do stuff like that. And I kind of hit the glass ceiling in theater in Chicago, you know? Yeah. And I joined Actors Equity, so suddenly I couldn't do any of the non-equity theaters. And that means the number of theaters you can work at suddenly becomes a lot smaller. And I now know, in hindsight, that like I suddenly was competing because you have to, pay people now. I was competing with friends and colleagues who had been entrenched in the theater circles longer.
Yeah.
So are you going to cast the new guy that maybe you do or don't know, even if he's pretty good? Or are you going to cast this guy that you've worked with before for multiple seasons? It's like, well, they're going to get that guy. And then I also knew, I now know of myself then, there was nothing that I was going to do as an actor or a performer that would push me out above those folks. It just wasn't going to happen. That's just not who or where or what I was at that point. I still don't know if there would be something that I could come in and do to wow somebody in a face market, where somebody sees me. And then what happened was that kind of like fell away. And I said to my fiance, now wife, I said, I don't think, unless my agent puts me out to stuff, and they sent me to like Steppenwolf and the Goodman and Chicago Shakespeare again. I said, I don't think I'm going to do the thing where either hitting myself against this wall, because a wall hit, and I would do the generals auditions. I'd run in and do like monologues for all this stuff. Nobody called. But the thing that kept going and bringing in some money was this voiceover stuff. And I said to my wife, I think I'm going to stop going after this theater thing and just go whole hog in voiceover. What do you think? And she's like, I guess, sure. And so the last time I was on stage was, oh crap, I'm doing the math now, and it's coming up on 14 years now. Wow. 13, 14 years. And it was touch and go for the first year or so. And then between the work that was going on, my agency, and what I was doing, like I was just firing on all cylinders. And and just doing all of that. And I wound up like doing the things. I was like, I felt like, oh my God, I did it. Not only am I making a living as an actor, I'm making a living as an actor, and I've got like a family. I've got this little house. And
that is no small feat.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, I did the thing. And then a few years ago, we decided, let's throw these things away and move to LA. But what had happened is I was watching, so for a while I was just doing voiceover. It was great. And then I started doing voiceover and teaching voiceover at Columbia College in Chicago. And then I was doing voiceover, teaching Columbia voiceover, and then started doing audiobooks as well. And I found that I was making the same or less money. I was doing more and more hustle, but not seeing stuff. And then my wife was finishing her degree in speech language pathology and was finding that if she was going to continue working, it would be another year or more before they would let her practice in the state of Illinois. But because of the need in California, California would let her practice at full salary with the intent to graduate. Wow. That's how badly they needed her services. So we were she was finishing up some schoolwork in the car. I got kids in the back, dog, and we're driving out to Dubuque, Iowa, where her family's from. And she, more than me, had this like kind of come to Jesus moment, as it were, saying, I think we need to move. Like I couldn't see long-term where my career in Chicago went. I really couldn't. Yeah. And she was like, you can't support us kind of like as is, anymore. It wasn't, again, because we didn't see long-term. Right. So we rented out the house, found a rental out here, and then we were lucky we were able to sell it. And so like that's the long story. And then 3 months after I moved out here, the first thing I booked was Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh shit.
Yeah, right? Like
And
one of the other things too, and I've said this before in a bunch of stuff, so hey, if you're listening to this for any new information from me, you're not going to get it. These are the same stories I've told every podcast, every interview ever. But one of the things I was teaching at Columbia College for voiceover was video game voiceover. One of their professors there, she's wonderful, said, you seem to know this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I kind of do. And she's like, come up with a class. So I came up with a syllabus and brought it in. And what I said to the last semester of students who were bummed because they were like, well, I wanted to come back and take this course or whatever. And I said, look, I'm going to be really honest. I've been teaching you guys for a while, and I think you've done really, really well. But if I can't compete with the big kids, I have no business teaching you anything or coming up with this course. You know what I mean? It's what worth is anything that I'm saying if I'm not applying it and making it function in the real world.
Sure.
And so it was really pretty good, to get that one. It's like, oh, phew, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing. And it was fantastic. And so, yeah, I mean, that was the first thing that I booked out here. And there's been other stuff, big things, small things. The voice of Hyundai for about 2 years, something like that, which was really, really cool. My agency back in Chicago, we always talked, we're going to get you a car, Tom, because good commercial money. And it wasn't until I moved out here, that there was a thing. Yeah.
So are you with that agency still, or have you since switched to a new agency here?
I am still with Grossman and Jack in Chicago, and then I am with RSA here. But really, I'm just following Vanessa Gilbert wherever she goes. So when I first came out here, I had meetings with a few different agents, and like CESD was like, and this is because I wasn't thinking of moving out here at first. I was thinking of trying the bi-coastal thing or whatever. And CESD, those folks were like really, really cool, but they were like, we don't have enough work for the people that we have out here. So when you come out here, you let us know. We can't represent you from afar.
Gotcha.
Other places were like that too. And then I came into TGMD. Tischerman, was it? Tischerman, Motley, Gilbert, and Drzowski. And and I came in and they were like, they felt like my folks, my team back in Chicago. They were it was really low key. It was like dogs in the office. It was really, really cool. And Vanessa Gilbert, who's kind of running things there, she's like, I got to go meet with somebody. And I'm talking with her and Ilko Drzowski and talking about stuff. And she said, I got to go meet with this person. But before I go, we don't meet with people if we don't want to work with them. And I was like, damn, Vanessa, okay. So I worked with them remotely for a little bit, for like maybe a year, if that. Not much happened for it. But, I was just on the roster. And then I said, hey, I'm coming out. And she and Ilko like threw me out the door when I first got here. And there's a lot of stuff like that. And then stuff changed at TGMD. And Vanessa was just like, hey, I'm going to moving agencies and doing this, and you're coming with me. I was like,
nice.
Okay. And she's like, nobody said no yet. Come on, And then she wound up, that agency, Solid, wound up changing and shifting. And she's like, I'm going over to this other people. I love them. They're wonderful. And they don't have a voiceover division, but I'm bringing everybody over and you're coming with me, So, I mean, that's one of the things that's probably been, different out here in that, could I be at one of the big places, like Vox and all these other places, maybe, and some, I've had friends of mine, industry and others like, maybe you should be, but I'm gonna follow Vanessa until I retire because she has put me in a place and given me certain opportunities that are phenomenal. And again, something I tell students like, no, you want somebody that works with you, that does it that way. And she really does. And she gets me, and then she'll send me something weird. And I was like, why'd you send me this? And she says, well, I heard this other thing you did. And I was like, oh my God, you're listening, that kind of thing and figuring it out. And also there are places like I look at the roster and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to compete for the audition. That, like, I want to be at the same agency as you. No way. I can't beat you. I can't beat someone, right? It's like, forget it. And so that's one of the other reasons that I'm sticking it out with her. Like I said, it's worked, but that trust and the faith she has in me.
Someone who clearly vouches for you, puts has a lot of faith in, sees your worth. So that totally makes sense. Yeah.
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 So that's the very long story. That's the very long voiceover.
No. That I love hearing about people's like sort of journeys, and it's funny. You say like voiceover kind of just crept in as a sort of, oh, this is sort of working, and I listened to just your natural speaking voice, and I'm like, damn, how did this guy not figure it out sooner?
Oh no. Well, part of it is because early on, like, so there's a couple things that happen.
Sure.
That early on, like, I had a trained theater voice, right? And I've sounded like this since I was like 18. And then you cultivate that theater voice because you're in theater, right? And you learn to do Shakespeare out in the park, literally in a park with planes flying over, right? So you've got to be able to speak to the back of the house, right? All that stuff. Nobody wants that in the booth. Nobody wanted that in the booth. The commercial read, especially because Chicago is very much a commercial town, is natural, non-announcery, right? Like everything says, non-announcery.
Natural reads.
Yes. And so I had to learn, how do I make this sound natural? And so I'm like, well, lift it up out of the chest voice so it sounds like a regular person. And then nobody sounds this clean. Nobody sounds this clean. So then I started, bringing in little bits of, dust and, little crap and things like that. Like at one point I'm working on Hyundai, and I was like, the new, and I did like the little cracky thing. And that was part of like the read. And this guy said, could you not crack on that when you hit that note as you come in? I was like, yeah, I can. Because this whole thing is like an artificial layering to make it sound like a regular person, And then the other part, of course, is the read itself. So, it took me a while, unless I was putting on a character or doing something like that, to find like, well, what is the natural read? And I think some of it comes from that theater training, in that you spend years if you go to a theater school. And because you are the only ones there, you learn to be a character actor. You learn to be a character actor and getting cast in all these parts in the plays and whatnot. And then you come out of school and the entire industry tells you, no. Be you.
Sure.
Act natural. That character stuff, that real kind of expansive, I'm going to play, doesn't come until you hit a certain echelon or you're in a company or something like that. And so suddenly it's like, whoa. I've spent 4 years playing characters,
Yeah.
And now you want me to be just me? No, I'm doing this so I'm not me, because me is never good enough, right? So it took like a while for me to find my natural sounding read, and then like the most natural kind of thing that I'd come up with actually was Scott Ryder for Andromeda. And that read actually is the Hyundai read. So by the time the Hyundai audition comes around, I'm looking at it and what they're looking for, and I was like, oh, you just want Scott Ryder. Enthusiastic but cool and approachable, like all this other stuff. And I had spent already hundreds of hours as Scott. So to suddenly be handed commercial copy, and I'm like, oh, I know who this is.
Yeah.
And you just boom. And so that was one of the reasons I think that gig showed up, was because Andromeda. And now that read is kind of my go-to. We need a regular person of indeterminate age,
Yeah.
And then you go from there. And funnily enough, one of the funniest things I heard from a friend of mine, she had listened to a little bit of Zenkichi from Persona 5 Strikers, and she said I had stopped and like did a double take, because I was like, it's just you. She's like, it's the first time I've ever heard you do any of your voiceover work, and it's just you talking. And I was like, he's confident, he's in a place of his own with a kid he's trying to take care of, but also kind of been thrown into the lurch and not sure of himself. And I'm like, and I was like, yeah, I understand that. That's where I'm at. I think one of the things that makes Scott Ryder work is that he's a guy that's prepared and trained for it, but now suddenly he's in over his head and is making it up as he went along. And I'm like, oh, you mean like me moving to LA for the first time?
Right.
You know what I mean? There's like a bunch of this stuff that you go, oh, these things kind of time out and work out. And some of it's hindsight, because you know what it's like. You get in there, they show you the thing, you just go.
Yeah.
And then when you think like, well, where did some of these ideas come from? And you're like, they're not conscious ideas. I'm not consciously thinking about that as you do the work, but the work you've previously done and what's led up to that moment, it's like your brain pulls that stuff. It's like, ooh, I know how this reaction is. Oh, I know what this sounds like. Oh, I know where this comes from. And you just go. And then when you're done, you sit back and you go, oh, this came from there. And it's only with that. I think that's one of the good things that came out of the degree is that I have the ability to stop and sit back and do that kind of analysis. But so much of the work is much more improvisation based. You know, here's stuff, go. Here's stuff, go. And it wasn't until working with Charlie, worked with Charlie Adler a couple different times, and it was like the second time working and playing with him, getting into that more improvisational space and realizing, oh, I got to throw both. Like, trust that I did the previous work, but I got to throw this out too.
Sure.
And yes, and this to death, and go. And that I think was instrumental to like the work out here, and doing that stuff.
Yeah. First off, going back, I'm glad to hear that it was also like a good fit for both you and your wife, right? Because it was like a natural fit, like for her career, for your career. Because for me, I've been out here like 2-3 years, but we had a similar conversation because my wife and I, we had a talk, and I had actually, there was this potential live action thing like that ultimately it fell through. Like I didn't but there were talks of like, if you get this, you have to move here or at least be here, and we talked about it, and I was like, listen, if I get this, are we gonna do this? Because we lived in Michigan at the time. And,
Okay.
Yeah. And so
I don't know you're Midwest guy. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going. Go.
Yeah, Midwest guy. Or did you grow up in the Midwest?
Yeah, man. Northwest suburbs of Chicago.
Oh shit. Okay.
I went to school downstate and then just came back up, and I'm like, this is a perfectly good theater town.
Yeah.
Stayed in Chicago. Yeah, my parents are still back there. Wakanda, Illinois.
Wakanda, Illinois. Wow.
Wakanda Forever. Yeah.
That's a great city name. So yeah, I was a Midwest kid, born in Minnesota, living in Michigan at the time, and I was like, well, my wife, she's an artist, and god damn it, there's a fucking fire truck going by.
Mean that.
All right.
They meant that.
Yeah, they meant that. So I was like, if I get this, are we gonna go? And she was like, you know what? Yeah. And then it ended up not happening. I think maybe I've talked about it on the podcast before, but long story short, it was like blah blah blah, this big thing that was supposed to go to network, and I was like runner up to the thing. It worked out though, because it never aired. They shot the pilot, and it never aired. And I can maybe tell you afterwards if you are curious what it was, but
absolutely.
Yeah, basically, and then it just sort of. But after all of that, I flew out here for like the final auditions and everything. Yeah. And I was like, coming back, even though I didn't get it, I think this shows this is time. Like I've always been scared about moving out here. Yeah. But the way things are going, I think this is the time. Like I have no idea. Yeah.
And that opportunity told you were ready. The opportunity was there, and you were like, yes, I'm going to say yes to the opportunity. Yep.
Yeah. It was me going, like I should go there by this point, blah, 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 whatever, some sort of goal I had set for myself. And then when this happened, I was like, fuck it. All right, we're going to go. Like, and also, since you grew up in the Midwest, you go through enough Midwest winters, and you're like, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore.
The last winter before we moved out here was the first polar vortex.
Yeah.
I will never forget. It was a sunny day outside. It was beautiful, but it was frigid. The kids couldn't go to school because it was not, you couldn't guarantee children's safety getting from like the bus or the car to the school. Yeah. And my son turns and looks outside because, again, it's sunny, looks beautiful, but it's freezing. Yeah. And he's at the big table, looks out the window and says, Dad, can we go outside and play? And I had to say, no, buddy, you can't. So when we were out here all together as a family, like 6-7 months later, anytime he said to me, "Dad, can we go outside and play?" It's like, yes, yes, we can. And we'd go out and like, throw a ball around or do whatever he wanted to do, skate back and forth, him on his scooter or whatever. Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's been a thing. And we go back, we visit, and it is really cool, and it is very nice, and I like fires and fireplaces and things like that. But then, yeah, I come outside here, I finish, some time in the booth, and I just go out in the backyard. Ah, yes. Look at that sun. Yeah. It's February. Yeah. We still been out here like 5, almost 6 years. We still have moments like we're outside doing something, and it's sunny, it's beautiful, and we're like, it's February.
I know. I lived my time. I did my time in the Midwest winters.
Yes.
Whenever people are like, "Oh, I wish I could experience snow," I want to slap them across the face. I'm like, you don't actually want to do that.
Drive up to Mammoth.
You absolute fool. Try driving in that shit. Try shoveling that shit.
Yeah.
Just dying in that shit. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But to go back to what I was saying, I basically. Shortly after that, my current agency reached out to me and was like, "Do you want to be represented?" I was like, "Yeah, right." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, you actually are interested." And then
that's awesome.
And it sort of kind of worked itself out. And I think it was that. And then I had to fly out for my first SAG job. And then I was like, okay. I never want to fly out here again for like so definitely as like that shortly after that we made the move out
fantastic.
So yeah, it was a very kind of similar conversation though of like, is this good for both? Because for her, I think she's also much happier here. We not only do we have a lot of like friends here in the area, but also even the job she's doing now, she's doing graphic design for Ultra Pro, and it's like she vastly prefers this to she was working as like a secretary before, which was fine. It was it's a good it was a good job, but this is still way more relevant to her skill set and her interests, and she has a lot more like creative creative output and creative work related to what she does. So it ended up working out. Now, I would like to give you the chance. I always give the guests a chance. Is there a topic you would like to bring up, or is there something you'd like to ask me, or whatever? If not, don't worry about it. But if there's anything,
you know what? Because I mentioned it earlier, and I still think it's brilliant. Your short form stuff on YouTube. What was the impetus for that? The whole ProZD, the kind of gimmick, right? You're making the videos by yourself, obviously poking loving fun at things you love, at your fandoms. Was it a creative outlet or just like, I'm going to fuss around?
Interesting. I got my start online creatively with Tumblr. I don't know how familiar you are with Tumblr.
Yeah. Yep.
But that was me doing like audio related shit posts and like just goofing around.
Shit posting.
Yeah, it was basically shit posting, and that's how I got my start. Was I built a sort of audience there, like, and it was also just practice for voiceover. Like, you are out there getting a theater degree and doing legitimate work, and meanwhile I'm doing shit posts online. But
I should show you some pictures. I don't know how legitimate some of it was, but anyway,
it's interesting because like I think a lot of voice actors sort of around my generation have very similar, like, even though some of us don't want to maybe don't want to admit it, a lot of us were like on forums online, like going, I want to get into this industry. Like, for you it was like, oh, it just sort of happened. Whereas for a lot of us it's like we would kill 10,000 people to get into a booth, right? Like, we are so hungry for it.
Like I said, it's the realization that this was not just a legitimate career and something you could do, but like I found out, somebody asked me, one of my students years ago, like, do you miss doing theater? And I said, I miss my friends. That's what I miss. Because so much of this right now, between audiobooks and, of course, patching in for COVID stuff, I don't see anybody.
Right.
Like, I don't run into, like, Allegra at, you know, one of the swank studios down in Santa Monica. I don't run into her at Lime. I don't randomly run into other people at, you know, at any of the other places in town. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I miss that. But what's really good about this is that it really, the whole voiceover, voice acting thing is, it appeals to all the sides of me. It appeals to the person that built his own computer rigs multiple times back in the day.
Yeah.
And then the artsy person that loves, you know, theater and acting, and it is a great marriage of goo and prickles. You know, there's the nuts and bolts science and the distance from the mic and the equipment and all these things like that, and as well as how much time do we have to say this thing? Are we matching it? What's the lip flap count? How much? You know, all this other stuff like that. But then you match that with, well, now you've got to find the squishy, gooey part. You know, here's the acting and the moment and the what are you thinking and what's the space? How far, you know, and playing it in that. So again, my dad the engineer, my mom the teacher, language arts teacher specifically. You know, so this whole work thing is a marriage of all of that. The other thing I find that I love. And I suppose I should ask you this too, but I also love this because I love rehearsal.
Okay.
But then when I do a show eight times a week for like 2.5, 3 months, I know a lot of people say, no, the challenge is to find the freshness and to do the thing.
Sure.
And I'm like, no, I like process. And what I love about voiceover is that it's all process.
Yeah.
We're trying things and making stuff up and try to get as much stuff in the can.
Yeah.
That's good and usable so that other people can go, ooh, I'm going to piece this together and, oh, listen to this lilt on this line here. We got to get this in here. Ooh, does this match up? No, we've got another one that will match up.
Yeah.
And I love that voiceover is process. Do you find that like with like an improv background, kind of like playing things like that, or what is it?
I do love the process as it finding what works, what doesn't, and developing. For me, like some of the best sessions are you go in not really knowing what to expect, and by the end of it going, wow, we really like found something together. We really, formed something out of nothing, and it all worked, and it was great. I've said this before, but I think what I love the most, though, my sort of like my creative high is as cheesy as it sounds. It's when you kind of like, not kind of, but when you lose yourself in it, right? When you are almost getting less focused on the technical aspect and more into like, I really feel like I am the character in the scene. That to me is my favorite. And I think what the technical side of it, it's like, because I've been doing this for so long, that kind of stuff can go on autopilot, and I know it'll sound good enough, right? Like where I don't have to hyper focus on making sure I hit every like enunciation or whatever. So if I can sort of let myself just kind of get into it and go more instinctual, and really feel like I'm in it, that's like my absolute favorite. That's what I love the most. So it's kind of like a combination, right, of like, yes, I do love the process because that's always really, really fun, but I'm always seeking out just like interesting like experiences and getting really, really into them if possible, because for me it's not about like I don't, some of my most rewarding experiences, I don't think anybody's listened to or watched. Like, it doesn't, like, whatever your most like like some of the best sessions you'll ever have, I'm like, I don't think anyone watched that. I don't think I don't think anyone listened to that. But for me, it's always going to stick with me because it was, one of those moments. Yeah.
See, it's funny. I think because of my theater background and the hours, days, years, that I spent doing that and getting that work, I specifically remember having a moment on stage, sophomore year. You Can't Take It With You. I played Grandpa, and it was near the end of the show, and I looked up at a friend, colleague of mine, Chris Toomey, who I think is out here somewhere. Chris, if you're listening, reach out, man. But I looked up at him, and I still don't know what it is. There was like some lightning, something in that moment on stage.
Yeah.
And it's a feeling that I sort of remember having, but I knew there was a feeling, there was a moment. We finish the show. We bow. We're heading downstairs. Toomey stops me in the hallways. We're heading to the green room. He says, "Did you feel that? Did you feel that?" And I said, "Yeah, what was that?" He says, "I don't know, but it's pretty damn cool." And I was 19.
Wow.
I'd found that thing, right? I was 19. Never had anything like that ever again. Ever. And so I'm like, well, it's, don't chase it. Chase whatever the moment is that's right there in front of you, the things that you're doing. So I've had like a number of different kind of existential moments and other things like that, performing roles and characters and all sorts of stuff like that. So I feel like some of my rewarding stuff is when I get close. I'm ending the day on Andromeda. I'm getting close to like line counts that Mark Meir and Jen Hale would hit. Like, what's Jen's record? Is what I would ask. And they tell me the number. And I'm like, nope, missed it. And then I was like, wait a minute, which game was that on? And they're like, Mass Effect 3. I said, okay, so she'd been at it for a while. She can hit, Shepard, that line count, because it's just old hat. Let's pump this out.
Right.
We're still exploring the space. We're still playing the space. But I love that. Or they bring me in I love coming in, and usually this will happen for rando backgrounds or monsters. They'll bring me in for, okay, we'll set aside an hour or whatever, and I'm done in 20 minutes. I love sometimes coming in, just knowing what I'm doing, especially nowadays when people out here don't necessarily know me. And I'm just ripping it out efficiently, and I'm like, yeah, call me again, please, thank you.
Dude, I feel you on that, because I will get called in sometimes, for like, hey, we want you to voice like five different little whatever background guys or whatever. And I think for me it's like it depends on like the arena of what it is, but like in certain arenas I like, they don't really know who I am at all, and like it is kind of like this almost proving ground, like of like, let me show you what I can what I can do, and so it's like, and then it's that thing like, call me again sometime, like, and you don't hear from them for a while. It's especially like video games, it's like you came and recorded, it's like, but they don't have anything for you to record for like another year or two, right, depending upon what's going on, right. And there were a couple instances, like back when I was in Chicago, there were a few times that people just called me and like, no, we know you're good for it, come on in. And I knew something was happening, even though I'm still doing a bunch of audiobooks, working in this booth at home, nothing's like happening for me, I'm not, I'm not Mr. Mercer. I'm not any of these other people. Like, I'm not anybody else in P5 Strikers. Everybody seems so busy to me, but I'm busy doing my own thing that I carved niche for. Sure.
But
work is work.
But when you get that call and it's not anything you auditioned for, they're just like, come on in. And it was, what was it? I worked on a game for Warner, doing some zombie sounds. I still don't think I could mention what the game was. And then I get a call, come in, go to the Warner lot. Nothing like going onto the Warner lot. I still love that. I mean, that's never going to get old. And I go down to the ADR area, and I was like, hey, what's up? And it's the people that I worked with before. And they said, hey, the folks up at Valve needed some stuff, some creature stuff. Sure. They'll talk to you about it, and we'll patch you in. I was like, okay. And the designer from Valve called in and says, okay, you have been, so to try to describe it, I said, what is this? They said, well, you're people who have been taken by the head crabs. I said, in Half-Life, I played all the games. Let's go. Let's go. Right? And so they're like, well, this is you're screaming, but it's not. I said, okay. And then it was the most satisfying thing. There's two satisfying things. I did something. It just sounded, and so the woman, the designer up in Seattle from Valve, I finished like 3 in a row of something just awful. And she goes, oh, that's awful. No, it's great, but it just sounds. I'm like, hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then when I finished up, I said, hey, what am I doing here? And the casting person from Warner said, hey, we worked with you on this, and it was awesome, and you were quick and efficient, and sometimes, like, I work with the folks at Valve, and they called and said, could you recommend some people for this thing?
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I can recommend some people. Do you want? She said, no, don't send me anything. Just book somebody.
Yeah.
I trust you. And I was just like, you guys did all this for me, and I got to come in and do this wacky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. A billion times. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, what a party.
Yeah.
And then the other game that I worked with them on, it was like all of this, like, okay, 3 or 4 different zombie things. It's like, okay, regular one. Okay, make them bigger. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This one's really big. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do that waddle thing again. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's process, right? Finding that, like the act. It's one of those things. It's like I feel confident I can find the acting. We'll get that. We'll find the nuances and the turns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which was fun, like for Zenkichi. It's like, okay, we have this time to do this. It's like, what are we saying? You know, and it's localized, brilliantly localized.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, what's this? But then sometimes we're like, no, we're just firing for effect, trying to get some monster sounds. It's like, all right, how do we do that? You know, does this thing need to be wetter? Does it need to sound wetter? I can make it sound wetter.
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. And that I loved. It's like the Octodad, which like finding that was a treat. And then playing with them on it, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love that process, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's, yes, it's acting, but oh man, it's playtime. Because I used to do this like by myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And just fuss around like, how can I make this thing? I remember Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Mm-hmm.
So Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I remember seeing like I loved that film. So I remember seeing the behind the scenes of that thing. And they showed Charles Fleischer doing the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. And
I was just like, oh, that's brilliant. But I'm like, wait a minute, how does he do the please sound? Because I'm like, I'm fussing around and I'm like, it's not sounding right. Why can I not do this right? And then I saw Fleischer do it, and he's doing it with the side of his cheek, not his lips or his tongue or anything. And I was like, no way. Mm-hmm. And so I worked forever to be able to do that.
Yeah.
As a kid.
Yeah.
You know, it's things like that. I used to come home from school and make sure I put off all of my homework so I could watch Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, and the Batman animated series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would I'm going to date myself here. I would record it on VHS.
Yeah.
And pause the credits to see the names of the performers.
See, you and I, very similar. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember doing this, and I remember watching Batman animated series, just being just adoring the work in that, and like being just blown away by like Richard Mall as Two-Face and Harvey Dent, and then of course Mark Hamill as the Joker. And I remember, because I grew up with Star Wars, like first run Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, seeing that in the credits, I was like, wait a minute, no, wait, what? Who? Who's the Joker? And then I started digging, because there was no internet at this point.
Yeah.
AOL, didn't have the same kind of information. And I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Mark's been busy.
Yeah.
I didn't, oh my God,
Yeah.
and I went into the depth of that. And so I started, looking up all of these, all these other people, all these other performers, Tara and, and Mark and all these other people, and started like making note of it.
Yeah.
And then I went to school and got into, Strasberg and Meisner and, acting, right?
Yeah.
And all this stuff kind of got pushed to the wayside. So yeah, there's been these little tells like,
and
hey,
then it
you
cycles
probably
back,
should be
right?
doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't realize it until, especially me, I'm one of those people that like, I need permission, and I shouldn't. I should just be doing my thing. But I feel like I need that outside validation before I take that chance, that step into certain things,
Sure.
which is probably, an Achilles heel of mine that, holds me back from certain things.
I see. Yeah, I very similarly, like, I mean, not only the Animaniacs, that era, but like, it was that era, and then shortly afterwards, I don't know how familiar you are with like the Cartoon Network, like Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab era, but
oh gosh, yeah.
So it was that
Powerpuff, still genius.
Oh yeah,
still a genius show.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
But for me, as a kid, it was I had an ear for recognizing, even though they were playing different characters. I was like, wait a minute, that's Dexter's dad, and I was like, okay, what's his name? And I would look at the credits, like
Tom.
Jeff Bennett.
Yep.
Okay, Jeff
Jeff,
Bennett. All right. And then, but that means he's Johnny Bravo. And so that to me was a so I still have a very like encyclopedic knowledge of that.
Yes.
Of that. And anytime like if my wife is watching like an animated thing, she'd be like,
forget it.
Yeah, she'd be like, who's that? I'm like, oh, that's Kath Soucie. I'm like, oh, that's so and so. Like,
Kath.
yeah, it's like, yeah, that's so and so. That was also kind of like a weird tell, I guess, because for me, I kind of my sort of what you were describing at age 19 with the sort of moment was I was recording for my friends. He wrote a radio play that we would just record for fun, like, and I was playing this ridiculous character, but he was a Russian boxer, and I was in high school, and it wasn't good, but there was a moment where I was like, I was really into it, and I was like, oh, I love this. Like, this is what I want to do. And then it became like, okay, how the hell do I do this? And kind of tying back, I didn't really answer your question about like the whole video thing, but going back to like,
I probably interrupted.
Oh no. And listen,
I have a gift for gab.
I love going on tangents. But the Tumblr thing, long story short, led to there was Vine, right? Which I had always looked at Vine and go, I could never do that. Like, that is so intimidating. Like, doing stuff on camera, really short little snippets. And then I decided to just do it for fun. Like, whatever. What's the harm? And then those really took off. And then after Vine went away, that's when I was like, well, okay, well, I'll just put this shit on YouTube, and I can work with longer than 7 seconds. For me, like, I think comedy and that's always been like a big part of me, I think, is comedic expression in some form or another. And funnily enough,
you kill it.
Oh, I appreciate that. And like,
oh yeah,
yeah. And I think it, it also helped like showcase like, hey, like this guy can do different sort of voices and also like perform, and so it absolutely like helped things out. And so it was like I'd always enjoyed like making people laugh, like, and for me though the Tumblr was my sort of like, well, I want to get in the voiceover. This was maybe 2012 or something, and I go, well, I want to do this so bad, but I have no idea how to do it, like how to get into it. I feel like it's impossible, so whatever, I'm not going to worry about it. And then I was like, I'm going to do one audio post a day, and I did that for several years. I didn't miss a day, and just as a I was dog shit in the beginning, and then you just sort of just by doing it, you become and then by the time like I was reached out to by an agency. I mean, even before that, but like, it's like I think a lot of people tend to focus on like, oh, but why can't I have success now? Like, why can't I? And I'm like, it's not a race, first of all, but also it's, if I had been approached like in 2012, for example, like right out, young kid, like,
what are the gigs?
I would have completely fucked it up. I would have. They'd be like, this kid can't act, and this kid doesn't know what he like. He's just a kid like who has like, I look back on that and go, wow, like I was not ready, and so it was, and like I mentioned, a lot of people in sort of my age had the same sort of start of like, well, we'll just make shit online. you make shit online, and then you end up meeting other people. Because obviously, I tell people networking is like half of it, right? Like, it's like, who do you know? Who can vouch for you? Like, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you just sort of watch as people's, and you keep making stuff, and that's what I did. I just made stuff, and then eventually, like, that caught attention of some people, and then it's all it is really is you're just constantly proving yourself like to other people, like, hey, I can do the job, and they go, you can do the job, let me show you to this other guy and then let me prove to you that I can do the job, over and over again.
Rob Paulson's podcast, his old podcast, Talking Tunes, he described the whole voiceover thing is, even if you get to a certain point, is proving yourself over and over again. That's what auditions are.
Yep.
And I remember the way he describes the process is like walking into stuff nowadays. He is the grizzled veteran, right? We grew up on his work.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm always like, I'm picking him out sonically and all the stuff that he does because I've listened to him for a long time. And he's like, oh, so I'll walk into situations or a callback or something, and these young guys get up from the table to say hello to me, and they've written this script, and they're like, hey, Mr. Paulson, we grew up on your work, and we absolutely love you. Like, we think you're the best. But can you do this? And it's right, and I'm like, yeah, Rob, that's it right there, every day, every day, and it is that, but that's the audition process. I remember, okay. I'm getting old, and so names are sometimes bad for me. But the gentleman from Davy Jones from the Pirates films.
Bill Nighy.
Bill Nighy.
Yeah.
So Bill tells the story about he gets that role, and everybody's blowing up, and he's blowing up after Pirates.
Sure.
And everybody loves him. They're throwing him into stuff. And they say, what's the best part about this new, you've been around for a while, working as an actor.
Yeah.
You're not like unknown, but now like you've got this star thing. They said, what's the best part? He says, well, I don't have to audition anymore. They just kind of hand me stuff and I pick what I want to do. And I was like, that's it, right? Like if you've been in the trenches for a while or long enough. Yeah, that is totally it. Just here's the thing. And you're just like, oh, I don't have to audition for this?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Because the auditioning is the job.
Yes. Yes.
That's kind of, and it's been, even though while it's very much the day job, I don't mean to demean audiobooks in any way, shape, or form. The people that do that for real, I don't feel like I do it for real, but the people that do it for real, whose work I love and I look up to, I'm like, those people are in it and they're phenomenal. But like it was a number of years ago, I wasn't auditioning for the books. There's like a publisher, Blackstone, wonderful, and now I'm working a bunch with Podium, where they're just like, here's some books, go. And I was like, oh, okay, do you like this? There's one of the first books I did was a series of books by Archer Mayer, who writes these kind of police procedural novels about Joe Gunther of the VBI. And I came in, he'd had two other narrators on his series, and they booked me for it. And I did the first one. And then they kept giving them to me every year, because he writes a book every year. And then a few years ago, he and his wife reached out to me personally, and then we put it back to the publisher, Blackstone, and said, hey, could you do the entire unrecorded back catalog of these books, please?
Wow.
We like you. We like what you've been doing. Could you do the back catalog? I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. It was like 18 books. So, and that dropped when I moved out here. So as I'm auditioning my butt off, not working at all, I had this stack of these books, and it was really great, and it's been neat. And it was a period a year or two ago. Suddenly it was like, oh, I didn't get a Joe Gunther novel this year, And I don't know if publishing or something fell off, but then suddenly Blackstone reached out and said, hey, we've got last year's Joe Gunther and the new one's coming up in September. You want to do these? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Let's go. And it's like getting the band back together.
Yeah.
Like these are some of the first character voices and stuff that I created for audiobooks. And I've adapted them over the years, but I keep coming back to them.
That's cool.
Here's a voiceover lesson, by the way. Don't choose a sprint character voice for a marathon character. I screwed up years and years ago. I gave, because Joe Gunther this was in the 2000s when I was recording this, like 2011, 2012. Joe Gunther is a Korean War vet.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, this dude's older. All right. So I'm going to create this character voice for him, and then everybody else is going to run away from him. Turns out the first X number of books in the series are first person from his perspective.
Oh my God.
So I'm reading entire books like this, and it's just like, yeah, dumb. I could not, I had cut my recordable hours on a daily basis in half just because nobody else sounded like him, but he's narrating from that point of view. That's dumb. Just dumb. But I didn't know, and you suffer, and you suffer through,
and then you learn. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. And I don't use, with the exception of him in those books, I don't use that voice for anything else. It's almost like too tied to it. Maybe I've auditioned for some video game project with it, but it's because if somebody said, this character speaks faster or slower, and if I'm in that voice, it's like, no, this is all tied together. I need to be able to separate it as a good voice actor, but it's so ingrained in it.
Sure.
And some of the way he speaks is my dad.
I see.
His phrasing is like how my dad talks and stuff like that,
Gotcha. Now I'm gonna circle back a bit as we're kind of wrapping up here. I would love to go back.
Editing later. Just editing.
Oh! I don't edit this. Don't worry about it.
I know. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. You're like, hey, shout out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Editor.
Yeah, my buddy Jay is the one editing. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. So I going back to board games. I would love to know. First off, your kids, what are their favorite, their favorite board game each, and then I would like to know if you have top 5.
Okay. I really think my daughter, again, 12-year-old genius, just a heads up.
Yeah.
I really think her favorite thing that she just is like, I want to play, anytime you mention it, she's good to go, is going to be My Little Scythe.
Okay. Yeah.
But I sincerely think if I taught her the full-ass game Scythe, she'd be all up ons with that, too.
Yeah.
My son, he goes back and forth, but I really think, so he played a lot of Colt Express on the iPhone, the iPhone app, because it handles the fiddly stuff, and I think sometimes he's cooler about losing there, but if he's competing with other people in a real meat space, he ain't cool with losing there.
Very competitive.
But
okay.
Yes, but the one he loves, you pull that out, and he's more than happy. Dice Town.
The one, I believe. Did I recommend that one to you?
I think so.
Yes.
And I, We were chatting or something like that on Twitter back and forth. You said, "Hey, Dice Town," and then the next thing in that line is me. Here's the picture of Dice Town. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Dice Town is great.
Dude, he loves it. We've gone to a local brewery when you could do things like that. I grab a pint, get him some root beer, and we just sit there in that place and play that 2-player. Goes well. He competes really well. Sometimes he makes bad decisions, but he's okay with it.
Sure.
Or he's shooting for something, or he's able to read the board and everybody else's stuff. He goes, "Ooh, they're running out of gold nuggets. All right, I gotta try to do this." Or "Ooh, I'm ahead here, but I want to end the game." So for him, it's I'm pretty sure I'd say Dice Town.
Glad to hear it. And how about you? What are the 5? Doesn't have to be your top 5, but 5 that come to mind of these are the good ones.
All right. I sincerely, because I like a good worker placement. I played a lot of Lords of Waterdeep on iOS.
Okay.
A really, really good game.
Yeah.
Would never pass the muster here. I think it's too slow, cerebral. That's why if I'm looking at worker placement, I'm going to have to say Vikings of Vikings.
Vikings of Vikings.
Champions of Midgard. Champions of Midgard. So Champion of Midgard right up in there. I want to like Root.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you on this.
So
Root, yeah. I want to like Root, but I don't.
All right, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I own Root. I own the expansions. I just kickstarted the next expansion. I have the bougie vinyl mat of the thing. I did the thing, right? I got all this stuff. I've read it a bunch of times. I've got the app. I have never taught it or played it with my family.
I don't. It's dense.
Nope.
It's dense. And have you played it with people?
No. I have not played this game.
Okay.
I own the game and the folder. The worst thing that ever happened to me was to have enough success in my work to have a couple bucks.
Yeah.
This is just dumb. It was just dumb. My daughter also adores the art and wants to get into the game because the art and the components.
I think your daughter could get into it from the sounds of it. Yeah.
Yes. So she likes that. I tried to teach it once and we didn't get very far. But my son was younger then, so I could probably try it now and it'd be better. We do like Fort.
That's a newer one, right? Is that the
same publisher?
Yeah.
Card game where it is a deck builder, but the trick, so you're all kids in a neighborhood building your fort, and the object is to try to make the coolest fort ever, so your friends will come and play with you. Those are the kids you invite into your deck. But if you don't make use of the kids in your deck, they go out into the yard, and other players can take them into their deck.
I see. Okay.
Because why would your friends? I love it. It's in the rule book. Why would your friends stick around if you don't play with them?
Yeah. That's great.
Very clever.
I just got that for my brother-in-law actually as a gift, but I have not played it yet. I would like to. It sounds fun.
It's good. It's solid. It was a relatively easy teach, and everybody got into it. And again, I talk about my son. Theme is everything. For my daughter, she draws. She loves art and drawing and things like that. And she saw immediately, oh, it's the same guy that drew Root. And so she's in. She's like, that will bring her to the table.
Yeah.
I also, so there's stuff that we haven't played that I love. I like Star Wars, the Empire. No, Alliance.
Imperial Assault.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I loved putting that together, pulling it out. I've taught it twice, and it kind of clicks. Like the kids get it, and they get into that miniature stuff more than my wife does. But if I'm going to bring everybody to the table, like no questions asked, maybe Catan. But honestly, Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, Ticket to Ride.
Everybody shows up. Everybody can compete each and every time. Hey, do you not have that much time? Go with Ticket to Ride New York. Nice little tweak to the rule set that's you can immediately pick it up. Tiny box, small thing. It gets competitive quickly.
Yeah.
But it's still Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, I recently picked that up for my folks, actually. Whenever I visit my parents, I will go to Target, and I will go... because they don't have like a friendly local game store near them, so I go to Target, and Target has a surprisingly good selection these days. So I will just go. I'm going. All right, I'm gonna get this, and you can have these so that I'm just gonna build your own little collection for you, so that when I visit, we will have games to play. But it's also great to introduce them. Because they had no interest in board games before, but it's been very fun to get them into certain games, and New York was one of them. I was very impressed with how well they sort of translated it to a smaller scale, but still keeping the spirit of the game.
Yeah, and it's that thing that I was like, oh, okay, it's smaller, and then suddenly I realized, especially in a 4-player game, oh, we just cut each other's routes off.
Yeah.
Oh no, did I just doom you? And it gets competitive fast, and suddenly, hey, you're cleaning up in 20 minutes. Or usually what happens is everybody just yells, no, one more, let's go.
Sure.
So the Ticket to Ride variants, I just thought of this. We bought it because I'd heard about it, and then suddenly it was at Target. We were out of our house because we had to evacuate because of wildfires. So we were staying at a friend's house in the city here, and I just went to Target to get some supplies, like just get some food. Everybody can hang out and get some sodas for the kids. Because we didn't want to raid our friend's pantry. They were out of town. They're like, no, have whatever. We're like, no.
Sure.
I got the stuff. But I go over and I thought, I'm stuck with the kids. We're not going to be watching on TV or anything. Yeah, we have some stuff. We have some pads and, I've got the Switch here, but let's see if I can find something. And we saw Horrified.
That's a great game.
Holy crap. Taught really well. Looks phenomenal. Theme? Oh, yeah. The boys all over it. And we've played that a number of different times with a number of different variants. And my son is just there every time. He loves the idea of these movie monsters and the creature from the Black Lagoon. He goes from over here, and if you do this, oh yeah, loved it.
That's Prospero Hall, the designers of that game. They do great stuff. It's great, like accessible, like sort of you can get them at Target, but really smart design. That game is basically like horror pandemic. It's weird to say now, but it's like pandemic-y, but horror themed. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've got, I think, Pandemic on the shelf here. Never got that one out. I know how that one runs. I've got, again, the app, and my daughter's played it a little bit.
Yeah.
But harder to get to the table. But that one, I pull that out, especially like, it's spooky times. It's Halloween or whatever. He loves it. And we played it like once a week, every week throughout October this last year.
Nice.
Love that one. There's a bunch of stuff in the cabinet here that kind of goes unplayed, which is the worst one. This is the worst part.
What would you say are a couple of the ones that you're like, I'm dying to try these out, just have not gotten the chance to? Because for me, I have like stacks of them at this point.
I can imagine.
But
and you wind up getting stuff sometimes from publishers too.
So yeah, anything I review is what it's sent to me to review.
Yeah,
and even but beyond that, it's my problem where I have stacks of unplayed, especially during COVID, because before I could at least get them played every week, like I could invite people over, and now it's like I'm just building up a giant tidal wave, and it's gonna splooge all out.
It's gonna be terrible.
When once I'm allowed to, but so what are some titles that you're like, Root is one. Okay, so interesting. I've only played Root once, and I would like to try it again, but oh man, it's tricky because I love the aesthetic. I love the concept. It's asymmetric, 4 different factions, but I just felt like the balancing was off. I don't know. I'd be curious whenever you do get to play it, what your thoughts are on it.
Which faction did you feel like? Well, how do we top that?
I played the cats, and they felt pretty like in the beginning. The whole point is that they're very like strong and they're all over the place, but after over a time they get weaker and weaker and weaker. I thought the one that was really kind of I couldn't figure out how it worked balance-wise is the little raccoon, or the traveler or something. He's like the hero. And he just kind of is his own solo game. And I was like, I don't really know how to stop this guy, like, from doing what he's doing. Like, everyone else is, like, hitting each other in the face. And then this guy's like, okay, I'll just go over here and pick this up and pick this up. I don't know. I'm sure people who... I'm sure heavy Root players will be like, well, you actually need to... I'm like, okay, yeah, probably. And I'm not saying the game's bad by any means. I think it's very cool. So I would be curious whenever you do play it, what your thoughts are on it.
I will totally let you know.
Yeah.
Shout out to stuff that doesn't get to the table. The D&D board games, the giant box ones, Ravenloft.
Yeah.
Those things. Played those couple. It's kind of based on the old 4th edition rules, where everybody has powers that they use on a daily basis. That kind of thing. Card based. Turn over the tile, hidden things.
Yeah, I think I played Ravenloft, or what? I don't know D&D at all. It's like what Castle
Ravenloft. Hold on, see.
Yeah, I think it was that one with Strahd.
So there's a bunch of them.
Okay,
but there's not Dragonfire.
I believe it was Ravenloft, and it had the vampire guy. Yep, it was this one. Yeah, my brother-in-law showed me this one.
Yeah. Tomb of Annihilation. And the other one we have, I skipped Assault of the Giants, and then Temple of Elemental Evil. Loved them. Box full of sweet components. Gets kids into a thing, and another thing that really works out for us is cooperative. We too often here have trouble with competitive games.
I see.
Again, the boy and people not knowing quite how to lose just yet, which is okay.
Sure.
Happens.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of thing. But so yes, the D&D Tomb of Annihilation and Temple of Elemental Evil, we need to get back to the table again because fun. The dungeon runs itself, right? You're competing against that.
Yeah.
Which is really, really good. Another thing we haven't played in a while, the Marvel deck builder, the old one, not the new one.
The old one. Are we talking Legendary?
Yes, Marvel Legendary.
My favorite game.
I taught it to my daughter because I taught her at a very young age how to play the Pokemon card game because she was into Pokemon because, you're a child.
Yeah.
She learned to play the Pokemon card game. And so I was like, well, if you can do this, here, come here. And yeah, she got into it. We played that a number of different times. I got a few different of the expansions, and it's sitting there right now. Unfortunately, it's a lot. It's a lot to bring to the table.
I have every expansion, and I have played every scheme. I have beaten every single one. For me, every time a new one comes out, I buy it. I sit down with either my wife or like a friend, and we just grind. We just cruise through like the 4 new schemes. I use a randomizer app. So every game, if you do bring Legendary back to the table, it's great because you can get a randomizer app. I think it's called like Assemble. Cute, Marvel. But it's what you do is you plug in what expansions you have, and you just press Assemble, and it'll give you the heroes to play, what scheme, and what you need to set up. And it's different every time. And because I have everything, every game is completely unique. Because I have 3-4 boxes full of cards. I had to get like custom dividers. Deck building games are the ones where I go all out. Listen. We should play some games sometime, I think.
Yeah, probably should.
We'll talk afterwards. But if you want to see a full collection of Marvel Legendary,
hell yeah. To round out stuff that needs to come back to the table, and actually my wife brought it up last week because she was mentioning a certain dice game. She couldn't remember what it was. Dice Forge.
Yeah, Dice Forge is great.
Yeah. So I haven't been able to bring the expansion. We played the original a number of different times, but I don't think I've put the expansion out on the table, which is just like
more cards.
It's
and
just
stuff,
more,
right? Or more like yeah. That's my favorite kind of expansion.
Just
by the
more
way.
stuff, more faces.
Yeah,
to
I love
put on the dice.
expansions where it's just, hey, here's more content, and not as opposed to like here's like 10 different new rules. It's like that can be fun depending on the game, but for me, the reason why I buy every Marvel Legendary expansion is you don't change the rules really. I mean, you learn new keywords and stuff, but it's just here's more cards. Here's a randomizer app. I do the same thing with, I don't know if you're familiar with Aeon's End. It's another deck building game. I buy every Kickstarter. I'm just like, yep, give me all. It's like 20 new playable characters, and I'm like, great, thank you. I will add it, and I have an app for that as well. That's my shit is deck building expansions.
I wish I've played the app, and I don't think I could ever get it to the table. Again, just for the daughter, but that's it. The Pathfinder Adventure card game. I love the app, and again, I love the idea of, okay, here's a card game based around adventuring through town. You have to do these things, and then at the end of the adventure, you just get rewards that suddenly become a permanent part of your deck, and then you upgrade your character and their abilities by, as they level up. And I love that. The kind of consistent, building throughout the course of a card. It's like, I have this character, and I put him in a little sleeve, and it's like, this is this character, and this is this character's deck. And I loved how contained it was.
Kind of reminds me of, you ever play Arkham Horror, the card game?
No, something I would love to do, but again, it's got to be appropriate.
Wait like 5 more years, and then maybe you can bring it to the table. But, if you like that sort of concept, I think you would really dig that. Yeah.
I looked at that last year. I was just like, couldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah, I get that. Well, this has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to sit down. I love again, not only hearing about how people get into the profession, but also just board game talk is always a blast.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find you?
Okay. I really am only, I mean, I have a Facebook page, but it's a bit of a joke because more audiobook people go to Facebook than Twitter. But I am at TAYLORSON on the Twitters. Maybe I've got an Instagram. I don't know. But it's at Twitter all day, all long. I don't stream because old man playing video games poorly is probably not good. Although my friend, she says that's a genre.
It doesn't stop some people.
And people would watch.
Yeah.
It's right. Yeah, some wonderful Persona fans have said, no, we'd watch old man playing games poorly. I'm like, you kids are cute. I love you and your anime avatars, but I don't know. I've got books to record here. But yeah, at TAYLORSON on the Twitters, and then from there you can find everything like my sorely outdated webpage and maybe even that link to that Facebook page that also is sorely outdated. I'm just saying, yeah, I got tweets to compose and books to record here.
Yeah, exactly. You're too busy for that shit. Yeah. And everybody go check out Persona 5 Strikers as well, starring Tom here. And I'm in it as well in various places as well. So check that out.
You'll hear him.
All right. See you guys.